Peace. Welcome to another Sunday video of integrating the sacred into our lives. And what we mean by sacred is simply the love of God, the wisdom of God, the truth of God, the beauty of God, the goodness of God, and integrating that into our everyday lives. And we do that by looking at the Gospels, by reflecting on the gospel of the day and seeing how it talks to us and our situation. So I'm going to begin with a question. My assumption is, the question follows, my assumption is that everyone watching this video is endeavoring in some way, shape, or form to live a spiritual life. And that means that we are endeavoring to be the best version of ourselves. We are endeavoring to love God and then to be instruments of God in the world. Now, this is the crux of the matter. This is what I want to focus on today. We're all going to fail at that to a lesser or greater extent. We're not going to be able to always do it perfectly. And I don't say this to induce guilt or shame. It's just a reality. We're not always going to be the best version of ourselves. So this is the question. How do we deal with that? How do we work through it? What is God's attitude towards us? And that brings us to the Sunday Gospel. And we're still in that cycle of post-resurrection experiences where the resurrected Jesus is appearing to his apostles and his disciples. But I want to put it in a context. The context is the apostles are on a boat fishing. Now, understand what the apostles might have been feeling after the whole Good Friday experience. They all abandoned Christ at his darkest hour. And Peter specifically, who was the leader of the apostles, he even denied 3 times knowing Jesus. So you can imagine, as they're out there on the boat, they're all wrestling with guilt and probably some level of shame because they fell short, just like you and me. One of the things I like to really stress is that the Bible stories are about you and me and our lives in a very practical way, and our relationship with God. So that's the situation. They're in the boat fishing, and they were fishing all night and caught nothing. And all of a sudden, there's this man on the shore. It's Jesus, but they don't recognize yet that it's Jesus. And he calls out to them, but he refers to them as children. So Jesus is the visible image of the invisible God. Jesus reveals God to us in time and space. So by calling them children, Jesus is extending his fatherly love and also motherly love. Those of you that have children, isn't it true that you can't not love them? You will always love them no matter what they do. You may not like and approve of everything they do, but you're always going to love them. I'll tell you a little story from my childhood. When I was in 3rd grade, I got kicked out of a Catholic school. The details aren't important. But when I got home, my mother was there waiting for me. And I really thought I was going to get a tongue lashing. And what she said to me was, I never liked that nun that kicked you out anyways. Her love and God's love through her was coming to me. That's how God is with us. So this man on the shore, Jesus says to them, listen, you've caught nothing all night. Put your nets on the right side of the boat. And they do, and they get this big haul of fish. So big they can barely make it to shore. But Peter recognizes, he's the first to recognize, that's not any man, that's Jesus. So what does he do? He jumps in the water and swims. They're about 100 yards offshore. He jumps in the water and swims towards Peter. Now, there's a very subtle point in this. Even though he denied Jesus, abandoned Jesus, Peter really loved Jesus. What does that mean for you and me? If we could access the deepest part of our hearts, we love God. We love God's ambassadors, Jesus, the gurus, etc. We love love because God is love. So even when we fail, it doesn't mean that we don't love. I'll say it this way. God doesn't love us because we're perfect. God loves us because God is perfect. To make that connection with God, to enter into some sort of healing and reconciliation with God after we have fallen, the first step is just acknowledging that we still love God. Otherwise, we wouldn't feel bad about falling. Love is the key that connects us to God because God is love. Ultimately, we only get to God through love. I'll tell you a story from Paramahansa Yogananda. You know, he taught this wonderful Kriya technique, and he was with some of his disciples, and another disciple came up and said, I'm doing all of these Kriyas, thousands of Kriyas, so on and so forth, and he walks away. Kriya is a meditation technique. And Yogananda turns to his disciples and he said, the poor chap, they're not helping him that much. And the disciples say, why? He's doing the Kriya technique as you taught it. And Jesus said, but he doesn't have devotion. He doesn't have love. We get to God through love. And I'm telling you, whether you know it consciously or not, you love God because you love love and you love the highest good and you love truth and you love beauty. You're loving God. So when you stumble and fall, and you will, go back to your love for God. That's what connects you to God. So the disciples get to the shore, and then Jesus takes some fish and he has some bread. He cooks the fish and he has a meal with them. We call that table fellowship. What was he doing? Think about it in terms of our lives. When we love somebody, we love our family, what do we like to do with them? We like to break bread with them. We like to have table fellowship because that creates a sense of intimacy. You know, my mother was Italian. My wife Vicky's full-blooded Italian. One of our favorite things we like to do is have the kids over and the grandchildren over on a Sunday, make sauce and break bread together. It makes us feel close. So what Jesus is doing in this table fellowship, he's creating communion with these apostles. And in that communion, he's offering them forgiveness. He's offering them reconciliation. He's saying the door is open. Come in. I haven't rejected you. I haven't stopped loving you. I haven't stopped being with you. I haven't stopped working with you. Let's break bread together. That's what God always wants to do with us. Now, the last piece is really important. Remember, Peter denied outright Christ 3 times. So what does Christ do? What does Jesus do? 3 times he says to Peter, do you love me? Each time Peter says, I love you. What was Jesus doing? He was healing the guilt. He was healing that karmic guilt that Peter was feeling by asking him 3 times to undo the 3 denials. Again, how do we overcome karma? How do we overcome guilt and shame? Love. Acknowledging that we love God. But Jesus does one more thing. Then he tells Peter to feed my sheep, take care of my sheep in my absence. And this is a subtle, but it's a very important piece. What was Jesus doing? A couple of things. He was seeing the good and the potential that was in Peter to be a rock, to be a shepherd, to help and to serve other people, to make a difference. And asking Peter to feed his sheep, he was dignifying Peter. He was trying to get rid of the guilt and the shame, and he was trying to elevate Peter to a higher level, trying to elevate and have Peter recognize the gifts that are inside of him and the dignity that God has called him to. See, when God looks at us, in a real basic way, God doesn't see our past. God doesn't see all the flaws that we have. God sees his own image inside of us. The Divine Mother sees herself inside of us and sees our potential and then calls us to a way of life. and a way of serving others, and a way of being a channel of love and truth and beauty in the world, calling us to that service, not so that God will love us, but because God already does love us, but also to elevate us so that we can discover within ourselves the goodness of God and the gifts that God has placed inside of us. So let me break this down to 3 basic practices that we can integrate in our life. So the first one is just accepting that we're going to fail, we're going to fall, and that's just part of the human condition. And God doesn't hold that against us. Yogananda had a great saying. He said the difference between a saint and a sinner is that the saint never gave up. Always remember that you love God. And when you feel yourself going down into that cycle of shame and guilt, just express your love for God. Tell God that you love God. Tell the guru that you love the guru. Go back to your love for God, and it connects you to God. It opens the spiritual arteries that allows you to feel God's love. Secondly, pray and meditate. That's the Jesus breaking bread, table fellowship with his apostles is also a metaphor for deep contemplative prayer. It's a metaphor for meditation. When we sit in prayer and when we sit in meditation, particularly after we've done something wrong, and we just open our hearts, we're there in humility. We're there as God's little children. There's a magic that happens. Then we can receive God's love. So don't run from God when you've done something wrong. That's the time to pray. That's the time to meditate. That's the time to make the conscious connection. Lastly, just as Jesus called Peter to service, to elevate and to dignify Peter, to dignify his consciousness, God and Jesus and the gurus call us to service. That a good life, a happy life, a life where we heal is one where we give our love away and we serve. I have a lot of friends that are recovering alcoholics, and they tell me that part of the secret of sobriety is to help other people to be sober, to give the sobriety away, and that reinforces their own sobriety. See, the way life works is whatever we give away, it comes back to us. If we're giving negativity into the world, that's going to come back to us. If we're giving love, truth, beauty into the world, if we're being an instrument of God's light in the world, then that light will come back to us. God has given us a gift and a calling to be light in the world. We don't have to run away to a monastery to do it. Whoever, wherever, whatever circumstances you are in your life, just ask, how could I be an instrument of God's light and love in these circumstances? I'm going to close with a quote from Paramahansa Yogananda that captures this whole essence of God's mercy. He says, of all the miracles performed by Jesus, none was equal to that mightiest miracle of the victory of divine love over evil. And then he says, what is that miracle? It's when Jesus was on the cross, suffering, having been abandoned by everybody, having been unjustly crucified. He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. God knows that we do a lot of self-destructive things, not because we want to be self-destructive, but there's so much pain inside of us. There's so much unhealed emotions. God understands why we do the stupid things we do, and so God forgives us. So forgive yourself and know that you are a child of God, and God has a wonderful mission for you. God bless you. We'll close with Yogananda's prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, Beloved God, may thy love shine forever on the sanctuary of our devotion, and may we be able to awaken thy love in all hearts. Namaste. God bless you. See you next Sunday.